Welcome back to the We Want More podcast. This is episode 3 of this should be weekly podcast, but due to my outside activities I need to do, I try to get them uploaded while I can. Now, at the end of last episode, I promised this week we would be talking about aliens. Unfortunately, our guest that we were supposed to have has decided to rush Area 51. Therefore, we decided to push him back a week. We'll talk about aliens next week. For this week, we're going to continue with our topic in education. More specifically, we're going to be talking about drones. I have a great guest this week. She has been on the show before. Want to go ahead and introduce yourself again for new listeners?
Hey, I'm Emily Bradshaw. I am a fifth grade social studies teacher at Middlesboro Middle School.
Great. As said before, Emily has been on the show. If you are new, here's a little introductory about her. Before we go any further, we need to get into this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor is Charmin, the best toilet paper brand in the United States and across the globe. Charmin for bare bottoms. If you go ahead and go to their website and use We Want More at the checkout, you will get a 15% off any 12 pack roll of toilet paper. Again, that is code We Want More. Use that at checkout, get a discount on a 12 pack of toilet paper roll. Again, Charmin for bare bottoms. Now, we've had you on before talking about just generally education and in technology. This week, we're going to focus more on drones. Do you know what a drone is?
I know a little bit about drones.
Drones are those things that, our parents were freaking out that they're going to be flying by with our Amazon packages and recording us, and they were going to shoot them down with whatever they could. Drones have better benefits than just delivering us packages, which I'm still waiting on that to happen by Amazon, by the way. I'm a big fan of that. I think that would be beneficial. Truck drivers might not be a fan of that, but let's go ahead and talk about drones and education. First, I want to focus on security. So that security is something that is a kind of a taboo topic because it is the worst thing that can happen in education. The unimaginable if it happens. But I think drones have a good benefit and not preventing it, but helping identify the problem more quickly, safer. You have any thoughts about drones and security?
I think it would be fantastic if we could use drones for security. If we, as a school system, have to evacuate the building, there doesn't need to be, if first responders haven't responded to the scene already, we have at Middlesboro one resource officer, and he cannot cover the whole building just by himself in a timely fashion. So I think drones would be a great tool to help him check the building in case of emergencies.
And that's a great point you brought up because we had a experience this year at Barberville where we had to evacuate the school, both elementary and high school, and we had to relocate at a church a mile down the street. Now we do have a resource officer at hand. However, I believe, that was unprecedented. We were not experienced. We have not had to deal with that yet. We did really well with our plan that we came up with on the spot. However, I believe that if we had someone with a drone, we could have searched and cleared the area in a more timely manner. And if there was somebody present, there was not, thankfully, if there was somebody present on campus, I believe that a drone could have identified that, hey, there's no one here. Let's move on to searching vehicles, getting these people out of the building more quickly and in a timely manner. Um, with drones, I believe that also they can, in our situation, they can take out or look at the evacuation areas where we went to a church a mile down the road. Again, I emphasize, I don't want to focus on the unimaginable. If somebody is serious about going through with the unimaginable, the dangerous, the unthinkable, we need to have these areas cleared and searched as we arrive as well. And I think drones will be a good and a safe way to do that as well.
And I think, like, if you are evacuating onto buses, we need to make sure you make sure there's no one outside first. If no one feels safe going outside the building, and we need to make sure that there are all eyes possible on those students and teachers loading onto the buses as well.
I agree. Another reason I think it'd be good for security is I know in Middlesboro they have a couple places off campus that for sporting events. I coach two sports where our fields, baseball and soccer, are at least a mile away off campus. I believe during games, during practices, if you have a patrolling officer come through, they can scan the whole area instead of focusing on one point of entry where they're limited, where they're actually in person. A drone can have a aerial view of the entire surroundings. So if you can see somebody that seems particularly dangerous or seems a little sketchy coming from a mile away, a drone can see that.
Right. I agree.
Whereas you have someone, oh, they're already here, a drone can identify them, a mile down the road. You have any other thoughts on security with drones? No? All right, let's go ahead and move into the next topic. Let's talk about the good things for once. Let's talk about what drones can be as a good thing in education. I think this will be in your area, especially since you work with little kids, smaller kids. What is something you can use with drones in your classroom to promote your students?
Well, not necessarily in my classroom, but I know our math and science teacher could definitely utilize the drones in their classroom. If they want to code a drone, they could definitely work on the coding aspect of it. With science, we are a STEM school at Middlesboro, and that would bring in more of the technology aspect that the science teacher can pull and integrate technology and science into utilizing that drone.
Yeah, so with a drone, if a part of STEM is mathematics, if you want to one day use a drone to talk about how you're going to avoid obstacles or how you're going to put in a specific type of code to give it a command, that helps elevate your math part in STEM. Again, another part of STEM, you have robotics. I don't know if Middlesboro has one. I know Barberville does. They have a Lego robotics team. Getting kids familiar with drones and that type of technology can garner a more interest into, hey, let's get involved in this. This is pretty fun. This is actually bettering our education, and it's actually fun.
I mean, I agree. We do not have a robotics team in the middle school. I don't know about, I can't speak for high school, but I think kids who love technology and love just devices, I think that would be either a great club to start up at Middlesboro or to be able to use that in the classroom more.
Yeah, and I think when we speak about drones, we're trying to reach a higher thinking, a higher population of students. But this can also be for students that are going to be hands on people in the tech field. They're going to be in the agricultural field. You can use drones, for example, in high school to get them used to it to when they become farmers or electricians. It can map out their designs better. It can cultivate their crops better. You can figure out, hey, why am I going to spend millions on farming equipment as an adult when this drone can spray these crops for me, can do the job for me at a much cheaper cost and less labor? When I was mentioning promoting students, I wanted you to elaborate a little more about how could you just show what you're doing in the classroom with drone. How could you get a better picture per se than you walking around with your phone snapping pictures?
With drones, you can get more of an aerial view. I think that sometimes when we use just our phones, we just get one like perception, and getting above everybody, especially like I think it would be cool at football games to see not only the players on the field, but to see the support in the stands as well.
And that works with connecting with parents as well because you are showing the best of your students, showing another angle. Like I mentioned before, off campus events, you can have a drone that flies around and you can promote your student athletes better. You can get different angles, and your student athletes are actually intrigued about that because they they're interested in that. They're like, that's cool. I'm getting shown from a different angle. If you just record a video on your phone, it's just a horizontal video where all it shows is them moving across the screen. Whereas a drone can move with them. For example, my soccer player, if one of them is dribbling down the field, that drone can follow them from above and, it can create a little highlight reel for them. And I think they would enjoy that.
I think that would be really cool to utilize in sports, especially.
Um, So we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we are going to talk about how could you go about funding for drones. I know people think drones are expensive, and some are, and we'll talk about some of the problems that come with drones. But again, we'll take a quick commercial break, then we'll come right back.
I have a structured settlement and I need cash now. Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now. I have an annuity, but I need cash now. Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now. 877 cash now. They help thousands, they'll help you too. One lump sum of cash they will pay to you. If you get long-term payments but you need cash now, J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now. 877 cash now. 877 cash now. 877 cash now.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash
Welcome back to the We Want More podcast. That's one of my favorite commercials. That with the what's the free credit score report.com. So as before, we were talking about drones, the benefits, the negatives of, or not the negatives, but the unimaginable, what we can use drones for safety, how we can promote our students, how we can connect with parents, how they can further education with using STEM. Now I want to talk about two things in this episode. First, let's talk about some of the negatives of using drones. Have you ever flown a drone yourself?
I have not.
So I'll give you a brief story. We had a drone, keyword had a drone, for one day. You know, my family got one as Christmas and came to realize they are not that easy to fly. I think we lost the drone in the ditch within the first hour of getting the drone. So when coming with the drone comes a responsibility. You're going to have, for example, the resource officer at hand know how to operate the drone. Or if, again, the unimaginable happens, have the police force be trained to use a drone, which I'm sure they will have that on their own accord to decide. However, if you're going to have a teacher use it, that sounds like more training hours for the teacher that they may not be happy about.
They would have to throw PD in there.
Yes, another PD.
Enjoy that.
But I think that's one negative that can come with drones is, again, you'll have to be trained to use one because, from my experience, they won't last long if you have someone like me using them with no training.
Especially if we have kids who try to fly them as well.
Exactly. That's the big issue. You'll need someone that not only knows how to use it themselves, but how to teach others how to use it without costing the school too much money. Which brings me to my last point, money. Drones are somewhat expensive. However, is Gear Up in Middlesboro High School or Middlesboro school system?
Yes, we have a Gear Up. We have multiple Gear Up.
So if you're not familiar with Gear Up is a program that is in schools in Kentucky and in other states, but within Kentucky, you have to have students, at least 50% of your school and population, qualify for free or reduced lunch. Through Gear Up, they do all kinds of grants, get all kinds of projects thrown together, field trips. I know I've had trouble here recently. I've been having a lot of students leave class for going on campus visits, which is great. It's fine. They're getting to do opportunities that may not happen before. They may not be able to get. I know some went to UK, some went to Louisville, some went to Campbellsville, Alice Lloyd on college visits through Gear Up. Gear Up is a great program because, again, it gives students opportunities they may not have got before.
Mm-hmm.
So with drones, I've spoken to a couple Gear Up people, and they said if we really wanted to implement drones, they would be the ones that get the grant projects. They would be the one that, hey, we qualify as a low-income area. We'd have to write up a grant, talk about all the good things that we talked about in this podcast, submit that to the state, and we would get a grant for drones to promote our school or our STEM program.
My question, not necessarily for you, but for like at Gear Up, would we be able to get more than one drone per school system or maybe one drone per grade? Especially if we're going to start implementing them more frequently into the school systems, do we need to keep adding drones the more we get students? Like, what happens if one breaks? Will we have sufficient funds or backup funds to help replace those?
It's kind of like with Chromebooks.
Yes.
Yes, with Chromebooks, you get grants from them for the state. Gear Up has actually gotten me my own Chromebook card. So what happens if one or two get broke? Are they easily replaced? Do you have to go through the whole process again? I know with my Chromebooks that if one breaks or two breaks, I'm out of luck until I can get a whole new set. So maybe they can find a way to order maybe 5 drones at a time, and then once one or two gets broke, they'll be able to get another grant to order 5 more.
And that way, that can kind of like not necessarily test the waters, but to see how students and teachers can utilize them in the classroom and if they actually enjoy it. We don't want to buy a whole class set or a whole set for the whole school and they never get used. I feel like that would just be money wasted.
Exactly. Smart boards were a big thing 10 years ago. Every day when I go outside, not every day, but when I go get the lawnmower to mow my soccer field, I see smart boards sitting behind the school rotting away that we fundraise to get. So I guess the biggest thing is, are we going to use this grant money, these drones, effectively for a good duration of time, instead of using them for a year or a couple times throughout the year and setting them to the side?
I think it's a very good point to make because we don't want to spend more money than we have to. It's nice, but at the same time, that money could be used for something else.
And at the same time, it would not be our money. I guess it would. It'd be kind of our tax money, but
I think with Gear, if you get like a X amount of dollars you have to spend within, I don't know if it's a year or a quarter, I'm not sure, but you have to spend the money somewhere.
And I'm sure that I know when students have went on field trips or Gear Up, people that came to my classroom to promote trips or programs they are providing, that they had to document their hour sheet. So I'm sure with drones, if we were to get drones through Gear Up, that us as teachers would have to document their actual use and show they're actually being used.
Yeah, and that would just put more on teachers or even the Gear Up person.
So we mentioned the negative of drones. We mentioned the positive of drones of this. I'm for getting drones in school. I believe it would be a great benefit for the student and the educator. Do you have any final thoughts on drones?
I do not.
No thoughts at all. Do you think you're ready to operate a drone now?
No, I would never be ready to operate a drone.
Well, we want to thank Emily again for coming to the We Want More podcast. Next week, week 4, we will have aliens. We will talk aliens. Hopefully our guest speaker will survive Area 51. I know he's supposed to rush it 3 years ago, but until then, we'll see you.